Alright, so our arena video, we're going to go through the historic Brawl format. It's literally just going to be a clear our dailies kind of day. We'll be running our Dominaria Niv deck. This is the list we still have here. A few little changes. We've added Anguished Unmaking to the list. And we've swapped out the Hydroid Crisis for the Solgark the Overslime, because of the synergies I've seen in Commander of it just buying back lands. And we do have some fetchable lands that we will probably be recycling as we go along. But yes, this is our full list. Slew of Removal. We're playing Gigant for Companion for a restriction just to make it a little bit more interesting. The Stock Curve. Have a slow lead down so you can see the rest of the deck. And yeah, we're going to jump into some matches and see how things go. First match here with Lilliana of the Veil. Our opening hand has good ramp, but we don't have green, so I switched to a more reserved hand here with our free mulligan. You got to remember, in Brawl you get a free mulligan. So after some consideration of our opponent's end, we keep this because we got basically a Traveler's Amulet to fix our mana and get the black we're missing for Prosper. We also don't want to go lower because Lily suggests this could be a discard deck. We start off with the Bant Triome. I decide to avoid hand attack and drop the Firemind's Research because this will just accrue us value over time. Immediately let's run out the Expressive Iteration and see what we hit. We get a removal spell for Lilliana, 2 of them actually. So I put 1 on the bottom, put Carvu to exile. We won't be casting that unfortunately, but we will drop the Tableau's Amulet just to ensure that we keep hitting our land drops. They drop their Lily and uptick her. I decide to discard the Alchemy card. I can't. Do I? Yes, I do. Because basically we're going to struggle down anyway. Used Angra's Rampage, force him to sacrifice, get a counter on Firemind. I'm going to hold up an activation till the end step in case they have some kind of shenanigans. They drop a Shieldred, which is Danger City here. So let's secure our 5th land drop and fire off a Niv-Mizzet for a reload. We draw another land. We need removal for Shieldred and an answer to Lily. Thankfully we get both in the form of Despark and Drown in the Lock. Our opponent uses an Edict to force us to sacrifice, which is weird, and then they don't use anything else. We lose 2 life because I screw up my stops, so we'll just exile the Shieldred now in the upkeep and go to our main phase. Choose to shock in here to hold up interaction. Consider dropping Prosper, but the 2 mana makes me scared they could have removal. So instead I decide I'm going to drop a Navigation Orb. With the Alchemy rebalance, you only need 1 to activate it, so we'll fix a couple more of our colours here. Just get a few more lands on the field. Our opponent drops a Liliana Death's Majesty, mills 2 and makes a zombie. We find a Solgark. So we drop a land. And then I have a consideration on how I do it. Basically I want to get to 5 activations if I can. Since they're tapped out though, I get Prosper out to get 1 trigger off him. And we find an OG. They uptick Liliana. Thankfully the invoke goes away, that could have been embarrassing. They go for a Vraska's Contempt, so we counter this. Now we have enough mana in our next turn, after they drop their Cult's Conscription, to go Kolaghan's Command, shoot Lily down to 5, activate the Firemind's Research. After I remember that Prosper takes tokens, we see 2 bombs on the top of our deck. Now we use Kolaghan's Command, make them discard, and shoot Lily down. We're going to blink the OG here. See the same 2 bombs. I make a mistake here because I forget about Prosper's trigger. So I exile the Uro. So I use Firemind's Research here, lose 5 counters, deal 5 damage. We exile Uro here and he gets out. Our opponent drops a Sorin the Mirthless. Hit a land off the top with that. Right. We play Uro out of exile to make a treasure token. Draws us a card, hit a Renegade map. Consider playing a Kaito here, but I think the better option is to drop Hostage Taker, take out a token, Ojutari blinks himself again. We find Decisive Denial here. So I don't want this exiled, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to exile a token, slam in with Prosper here, to try and keep Sorin down, hope that they'll trade, which they will because they only lose one creature anyway. I'm going to take out the token, play a Renegade map to set up for next turn. They uptip Sorin, they find the Phyrexian Obliterator. So now we desperately want to cast 2 spells so the Hostage Taker can steal the Obliterator. Our fight spell in hand now looks terrible. Pop in map to grab a swamp. So it only counts about 2 trig counters here. So first things first, we play Kaito plus him so that Phyrexian Obliterator can't block. Then I play the Knight of Autumn, which was a mistake. I should have done this after combat. Try to bait out a block from the Cult Conscript. But you know, we're just playing casually here to get our dailies. So I choose to get rid of the Obliterator here with the Hostage Taker, because if they remove Hostage Taker, we gain 4 life for no reason. If they go for removal on Hostage Taker here after the block, the Phyrexian Obliterator still can't attack, and then we're just digging for another answer, but Kaito can lock it down. Opponent finds the Infernal Grasp. So to be mana efficient here, I'm going to force them to use this to pay free so it doesn't get countered. Give us another counter on the Fire Mines, try to get back to that. Right, choose to use Niv-Mizzet here. Basically we got to find answers. And we find a huge assemblement of answers here. I use Legion to Ashes here to get rid of the Obliterator. I choose to blink Niv-Mizzet, and they've seen enough at this point. They can't come back from this setup engine. So that's one match. This is why I show you that Brawl can be great for just your dailies. So one match here, we've got half our dailies pretty much done. Second match, we've got a Muxus deck. So this is aggro. And like any aggro deck with this deck, you've just got to focus on stabilizing. I keep this hand because we've got a Back Alley Gardener, which is one of the greatest ramp spells ever printed. There's not too much pressure right now, so I'm okay with it. We get stomped. On our turn, I play the Back Alley Gardener here. Our opponent attacks in. I'm not going to block because there's very good chance to have a free damage burn spell. But this untapped Plains is great now because we can use the Rip Apart to kill Bone Crusher. And then we can play a Carvu, trigger the Back Gardener, which is going to hold back here for blockers. Opponent goes in, so I'm going to block here with the Carvu because they do incidentally have the free damage. They drop a Skirk and a Goblin Banneret. So I use Assemble the Team here because if we tap out now for Niv, they have Muxus, and a Muxus hit with no backup would be terrible. So I look through my deck and I find that we find both our little sweepers. So I choose Clarion here because Back Alley will survive, and incidentally just gaining life here could be huge. Now they don't have a way to cast Muxus this turn. They go up to 5 and play the Goblin Array and a Tin Street Cadet. So now we've got to consider our options. We can't counter the Muxus because there's not enough cards in the graveyard. So I choose to play Niv-Mizzet, get a trigger off the Back Alley Gardener. We find a great assemblement of cards here. I choose the Culling Ritual because if their Muxus hits a bunch of cheap goblins, we'll be okay. They only hit 2, so they hit a Krenko and a Gem Palm Incinerator, which is great for us. So we start with Legions to Ashes and they just concede. Basically, Muxus is the glass cannon of Brawl. If you don't get a good hit, you just have to concede. Even that though moves us closer to our daily, so I think we'll get one more in. We get an Azika, God of the Tree, and a Prismatic Bridge. We keep a semi-risky hand if our tablet doesn't hit anything, but it's a fairly okay start. We find Oracle of the Alpha, which I absolutely love this card. I wish they'd put this into Commander. Well, I say that until I'd probably play against it. They drop Signet. We're going to get the Oracle down for fun. Let's put the power 9 into our deck. Opponent goes up to 3 and just continues ramping. So, with our cards, we choose to go in and attack with the Oracle. We put a land to the bottom. Basically, I want something to answer the Prismatic Bridge if they just ramp that out of nowhere. They play an Urabrask, so this is the Praetor Planeswalker version. Basically, every good thing you could want out of a deck. So while they're tapped out here, I use Rolling Regrowth just to ensure that we hit lands. We're fixed now, we got ready for a Niv. So we swing in with Oracle, get a Scry. Sorry Chevelle, but we're going to put you to the bottom here. They drop the Prismatic Bridge, we untap. So I choose to use Arcane Infusion here to dig, but I find a Time Walk, you know, which is insane. Let's cast a power 9 while we're on. So, Time Walk, take an additional turn, attack with the Oracle. Put Prosper to the bottom, we're trying to look for a way to kill the bridge. We don't find it, but we do find a Soul Herder. So right now, considering my options, I just figure we'll run out Niv-Mizzet. We don't hit great at all, to be fair. And we don't even have mana untapped to Flower to grab another land. So it's just, we gotta hope they don't hit anything too bad. They do find a Tasha, and they drop an Avacyn, which is insane. Fortunately, we top deck the Vanishing Verse, so that goes away. We'll fix our Flower mana here to make sure we have more land drops. We're going to go to combat here. Tasha gives the -1 regardless of what we attack, so we're just going to swing in with Niv and kill Tasha. That's great. Now we can play Soul Herder, blink Niv, get another Niv, and remove the negative counters from him. We got to again pray that the Prismatic Bridge does not hit anything too scary. Reload again. I basically drop our small removal creatures here and our hand disruption. They hit a old school Jin-Gitaxias, Binding of the Old Gods, the Soul Herder, and play Limvala, the Keeper of Secrets, then draw back up to 7 cards. This feels fairly hopeless right here, so we just get rid of the Jin-Gitaxias before it forces us to discard. Fortunately though, it turns out that I have exiled most of their threats, so there isn't actually enough stuff in the graveyard to kill the Limvala. I decided that my best option here is to use the Knight of Autumn and just destroy the bridge, make them recast it, make them miss a trigger. I consider what I could do here, and I decide going in with Niv to see if I can force a block, which I don't, and I decide probably holding up interactions more valuable here. They drew 7 cards and we don't know what those 7 cards are. They explore. And then I remember this now, so really incidentally, this turn we discover that they drew 7 ramp cards. I'm not even joking. This is just ramp after ramp after ramp here. They do hit an Elsbeth Conquers Death. We unfortunately can't counter this because again we still have the wrong number of cards in our graveyard. Fortunately though, their Explore did put enough in for the Limvala kill. So we'll put Niv back to the command zone. And we'll just start applying pressure here because they can't get anything stupid off their activation here. What I mean is, sorry, they can't rely on casting the bridge here because they're dead on board, so they need answers. We have a veto that we can afford even with the Elsbeth tax. They cycle a card, they find the new Jin-Gitaxias. That puts us in a difficult position, so with the tax, we're still an issue here. Fortunately, they have to trade with the Karvu here. There's no blocks they could make unless their last unrevealed card is a removal spell that could save them. Calling Ritual takes out a couple of mana rocks but also kills our Karvu. Consider the Niv-Mizzet here, but I realise that their only option here is to trade, so I'm going to play the Brutal card from the new Kavar. We're going to discard the Culling Ritual. We find a Widespread Thievery and we find a Legion to Ashes on top of the deck, which is great for us because we need to bolster our life here. So not our life, we need to bolster our hand because this Jin-Gitaxias is going to come back off the Elspeth trigger because it's the most prominent threat they have that I did in exile. They play a Midnight Clock, which gets copied with Jin's ability. Play a land, play a Chromatic Ori, and they play Esker front side up to survive with a block here. And then they put counters on their Midnight Clock to try and get into the 7 draw. Fortunately here, what we can do is play the Widespread Thievery so we can get some value because Jin doesn't counter enchantments. We find another Power 9 Ancestral Recall, but we won't get to cast that. I choose to use the Angra's Rampage to get countered with Jin's ability. We still get a mana here. Then we'll use Legion to Ashes and exile another Praetor. Now we've got lethal on the attack. So our component concedes. And with that, all our dailies are covered.